With how popular of a game Pizza Tower has gotten, it's no surprise many of the game's players have come up with challenges to make things harder for themselves. And while one of those challenges is uninspired, overdone, and frankly quite stupid, the rest of the challenge running scene is pretty cool. In particular, Pizza Tower has a kaizo running scene that, in all honesty, is fairly unheard of and not really talked about, which I think is a shame, so I'm hoping some spotlight gets shown on it. So that's why I've been planning on making a long and technical video explaining one of the hardest and most fascinating levels that has ever come out of this game's level editor. That isn't this video though. Instead, I'll be discussing a much simpler level called Pillar Protection Protocol. Created by Delete RNG, this level is more of what I'd call a beginner stage in the kaizo running scene. However, from the average player's perspective, this level is still very challenging and pretty hard to read. So today, I'll be covering all 3 rooms of the level in great detail, breaking down each mechanic and explaining how they work, as well as covering why they're so difficult. With all that said, enjoy. Okay, there's a lot of nuances that aren't visible immediately when it comes to completing this room, so let's go over them. The start of the room forces a lot of tight gameplay to get past this time gate in time, as well as a technique known as a fastfall. A fastfall immediately uncaps Peppino's falling speed, allowing Peppino to fall at the same speed as if he was diving while twirling. There are 2 standard ways of performing a fastfall, and the one we want to perform here is the wall buffered version. This variation requires the use of a wall, where wall running allows us to buffer the inputs for a fastfall by holding grab, down, and the direction we're going in. Then pressing jump will cause us to perform a wall jump. However, the buffered inputs would allow us to do an instant grab twirl to stay in the same spot, as well as falling faster thanks to the down input. By grabbing into the wall at the start instead of simply running at it, we are able to slow down our running speed while on the wall, which gives us more time to perform the fastfall before bonking on the ceiling. After performing the fastfall, we need to quickly grab to the right to avoid the portal, and then press jump before we reach the ground to buffer a long jump over the second portal. It's imperative that we grab as early as possible after fast falling, as the grab would accelerate us as we fall down, and the same isn't true when we're in the long jumping animation. Afterwards, we can dive down into the gap and then press jump to perform a powerbomb. Powerbombs briefly halt all vertical speed before quickly accelerating Peppino back down, which allows us to make it over these portals and onto the cheese block. Powerbombs briefly stun Peppino when reaching the ground, which allows us to buffer a set of inputs for our next technique, the high jump. By pressing run, up, grab, and jump all at the same time, Peppino will perform a jump with the same momentum as if we had just uppercutted, but while still allowing us to perform other actions such as grabbing and diving. This technique is nowadays multi-binded to a single button, but back before multi-binds were a thing, high jumps could still be performed after being buffered from uppercuts, taunts, and body slams. We use this additional height to jump past the portals and onto this boost pad, where we need to perform a few boost pad cancels. Boost pads increase Peppino's speed while also forcing Peppino into his default running state through this animation. This animation usually disrupts any other actions such as rolling or grabbing, forcing Peppino to run normally for a second or so before giving back control to the player. However, pressing jump while on the boost pad would cancel this effect, allowing us to roll through the gaps right in front of the boost pads without bonking. We do a couple of these before performing a forced powerbomb over the portals and onto the next boost pad. We again cancel the animation, this time to perform a super jump before running into this portal. Canceling a super jump by pressing grab or run would have Peppino perform a shoulder bash, which instantly puts Peppino at Mach 3. This allows us to dive and jump off this platform, where we can use our instant Mach 3 to boost off the Pizza Boy cutout by pressing jump, sending us onto this wall. Here we have to do a Mach launch, which is a technique that allows Peppino to maintain vertical momentum while not on a wall. This can be done by holding jump while wall running, canceling the wall run by releasing the sprint button, and then keeping jump held to retain our vertical speed while being free to perform other actions like grabbing. In this case, the added height from the Mach launch as well as an uppercut allows us to reach this boost pad. We instantly jump out of the boost pad to avoid this portal, and wall jump onto the left wall to build up speed and make it past this time gate. The additional speed makes it possible to cross the gap of portals and onto this wall with a button gate. The button forces 2 more fast falls. However, normal wall buffered fast falls aren't possible due to the way the portals are positioned. So instead of cancelling our grab with a twirl by buffering a directional input, we can just not hold any directional button to grab in the opposite direction while fast falling and get past the portals, after which we buffer another long jump out of to grab to dodge this portal. These boost pads grant us speed, which we need to maintain in order to cross the gap at the end of the room as well as make it past the time gate in time. So normal drifts or Mach cancels won't do for getting the switch block. Instead, we perform 2 variations of an insta-turn. Insta-turns are a way for Peppino to turn around while maintaining most of its speed, and there are many different variants of them that are applicable in different scenarios. The first insta-turn we perform is an up dog, which involves uppercutting into the ceiling and pressing the opposite direction to turn around after landing. Some of our speed is lost as we fall down after uppercutting, but we can easily regain top speed by climbing on this wall. The second insta-turn we perform is a pause buffered insta-turn, which is the more common insta-turn variant. A pause buffered insta-turn retains all of our speed when done right, and requires us to be able to perform a fast walk. A fast walk can be done by grabbing and releasing run during the grab animation, which has Peppino start walking while slowly losing momentum as long as we keep holding forward. Pausing while in this state allows us to buffer a turnaround by holding run in the opposite direction, and after unpausing, Peppino would instantly turn around while maintaining the same speed he had when we paused. The easiest way to perform a fast walk is to grab and release run while midair, which skips having to wait for the grab animation to finish while on the ground. However, there's not enough room on this ledge to simply jump and grab to perform a fast walk, so instead we have to perform a pop-up grab. In earlier versions of the game, the transition from a wall run into a normal run wasn't instant, and instead Peppino would spend a little bit of time in the air before falling back down and continuing the run. This was patched out in the noise update, but it was re-added in the localization patch that speedrunners call Vanny Patch. In Vanny Patch, a pop-up can still be performed if the grab button is held at least 8 frames before exiting a wall run. So, by holding grab just before Peppino finishes climbing this wall, I can buffer a pop-up grab that would then set up a fast walk as soon as Peppino reaches the ground, at which point I can pause and buffer my inputs for a turnaround before unpausing to maintain all my speed to jump over this gap, with an uppercut at the end for extra distance. Phew. Here's the room once again at full speed. That was a lot, but now that you understand what's going on, let's move on to room 2. The pizza cutters near the middle of the room introduce a small cycle that we have to follow, where their movements are easier or harder to dodge depending on the time we reach them. The best timing I found was to taunt at the start of the room before continuing, which would line up the pizza cutters in a way that they start spinning away from the wall as soon as we reach them. After taunting, I grab slide to the right, where I need to perform a very small jump to make it past these portals. This jump can thankfully be buffered from a taunt, as pressing jump while taunting would retain the jump input, but if I release jump before the taunt ends, Peppino wouldn't gain any additional height, resulting in the shortest possible jump after the taunt. After this, I gain speed off the boost pads, which sets up a required coyote jump to avoid bonking on the ceiling. Coyote jumps are possible because of the game's leniency when it comes to jumping on the edges of platforms, where even after Peppino has run off the platform, there is a short interval where pressing jump would still result in a jump. In Pizza Tower, coyote jumps are dependent on the time spent in the air after running off a ledge instead of the distance from the ledge, which is a consistent 6-frame window. So even if it looks like Peppino is nowhere near the ledge at this point, since jump is pressed within 6 frames of him running off the platform, the coyote jump is still performed. The coyote jump sends me onto a timed gate, off of which I do a mock launch and grab to the left to get to the button. The button's timing forces a wall dive, which is basically just a dive performed right after wall jumping. After running along the cheese blocks, I get up to this wall by jump grabbing, twirling, and then grabbing to the left all while jump is held. This is called a cross grab, a technique that involves performing mock cancels during the brief period in which Peppino is still gaining height due to jump being held, allowing for Peppino to get past precarious level geometry like this. The pizza cutters on this wall would force us to jump away from the wall to avoid getting hit, so more cross grabs are required so that we maintain our height. Depending on the cycle, you would have to perform more or less cross grabs before being able to jump to the right, but thanks to the taunt at the start of the room, I am able to get by with a single cross grab before jumping to the right in time. I activate the switch block and the button with 2 pause buffered insta-turns to retain speed, and then jump over these boost pads and onto this wall. All that speed retention was required so that a mock launch off the wall would send me up high enough to reach this boost pad with an uppercut. Afterwards, I jump out of the boost pad and perform another pop-up insta on the switch block. Here, I'm forced to get past all of these portals and into the pizza box, which can only be done with a precise mock launch off this wall, after which I instantly grab to the right to gain horizontal distance while the mock launch continues sending me up. Finally, I twirl to cancel my grab so that I am able to uppercut into the pizza box, clearing the room. Here's the room one more time at full speed. Now let's move on to the last and most difficult room of this level, room 3. The start of the room isn't anything new, with a boost pad cancel followed by another pop-up insta-turn. I sort of grab to slow myself down when climbing this wall, which allows me to perform a wall dive and powerbomb to reach this boost panel. The boost panel aligns me in the perfect way to set up a ceiling bug off this corner. Ceiling bugs are pretty complicated, as they only occur when Peppino hits the exact corner of a ceiling, causing the game to get confused between whether Peppino should start climbing the wall or keep falling down. What ultimately happens is that Peppino's falling speed is reset while Peppino keeps moving forward, which slows down my fall and allows me to uppercut into this boost panel. That was probably an unsatisfactory explanation for some of you, but I'll go over ceiling bugs and edge bugs more when they come up during harder levels. Now, while it might not seem like it, the upcoming wall jump section in the middle of the room is actually a pretty big choke point and is the hardest part of the map for me personally. That's mostly due to the wall jumps being fairly precise because of the two walls being so close together, and because there aren't any great visual indicators for when to jump. I found it easiest to jump based on timing instead of looking at any visual indicators, which worked a decent amount of the time. The first wall jump out of the boost pad is always immediate, after which come the two taller wall segments. The second wall segment is actually slightly taller than the first, so the timings are a bit different, but I generally try to wall jump after 20 frames, or about a third of the second has passed. The next two wall jumps are 10 frames apart, and then the final wall segments are so small that I just spam jump when I get to that point. Thankfully, the rest of the room is a lot easier and less timing dependent. I buffer a roll under this portal, which sets up a powerbomb onto this boost pad, which I then jump cancel out of to continue diving on this platform. After that, I time a precise jump and dive into these reverse blocks. Down here, I have to do another coyote jump onto this wall, which I have to immediately mock launch off of to reach the boost pad. It's important that I stop holding any direction here, as the boost pad lines up yet another ceiling bug off this corner, and reaching the boost pad in any other spot would mess up the alignment. The ceiling bug allows me to reach this platform, on which I do an insta-turn to fall down to the bottom section. After a few more boost pad cancels, I make sure to buffer a super jump while rolling under this gap and not holding the forward direction, which would halt my momentum just before reaching the portals. I then do a tight dive into this gap and jump out of another boost pad to get past the time gate in time. The next section is mostly an auto-scroller with a jump and uppercut to reach the upper boost pad. I do a pretty scary setup-less short hop past these portals, which can sometimes be skipped by just not jumping and climbing this wall. I then roll under these portals, only stopping to grab this button, before jumping as far as possible and uppercutting onto the final boost pad. From here, all that's left is a very late mock launch off this tiny wall to reach the boost pad and slip on the banana, killing Pillar John and clearing the level. Now, while that is it for this level, Delete has actually released two more kaizo levels that he has included along with this one in a full tower. I can't discuss the other two levels now as this video is already getting pretty long, but if you want me to make follow-up videos in the other two levels, let me know in the comments and make sure to subscribe to not miss the uploads. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.
What the hell? Deep fried pizza? No, shit. No. Oh my god, young man. Kill yourself!